On this episode of the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Teddy went to OU's practice this weekend, so we get all his thoughts on what he saw. Then in Football Guys Talking Basketball, we talk some OU hoops and some Thunder, and we get to a lot of other things in our winners and losers of the weekend. Please download and subscribe to the podcast, rate it 5 stars, and write us a good review. Follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search Oklahoma Breakdown on any of those and you'll find us. All right, our man Michael Hosty will kick this thing off. It's time for the Oklahoma Breakdown. It's a beautiful Sunday, April 7th, and you're listening to the Oklahoma Breakdown with Ikard and Lehman, presented by Riverwind Casino. Riverwind is Oklahoma City's premier casino experience, and there's so many reasons why Riverwind is consistently voted OKC's #1 casino, but it all starts with their amazing variety of gaming thrills and excitement. Riverwind's beautiful award-winning environment plays host to more than 2,800 of the latest electronic games with a huge selection of table games, including blackjack, match, roulette, and Teddy's favorite, craps. No matter what your game, Riverwind has it in spades and hearts. And to learn more about their gaming promotions and entertainment options in the month of April, all you got to do is visit riverwind.com. Riverwind Casino, simply the best. Spring game is 13 days away. Ted, getting close, man. Right around the corner.
It is. It's getting close. They're I guess maybe a little over halfway through their spring practices, and yeah, it's going to be coming to a conclusion here pretty quickly.
Now, we're recording this Sunday morning. Please leave us a 5-star review and a nice comment. Also, if your business wants to advertise on the podcast, you can email us at theoklahomabreakdown@gmail.com. Let's get right into it. Ted, you finally got to go to practice.
I did. Yes. Yeah, it was good. There was, they had a practice going on. They also had a ton of recruits in town, and recruits and parents. There was a lot going on around the stadium on Saturday for sure.
How many times were you introduced as Teddy Lehman, butt kissing Bednarik award winner?
I wasn't. Luckily, they were pretty busy up there. I talked to some guys on the side, but while I was there, it was work time. They were getting it in on the practice field.
I like it. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball, because I assume that is what you were watching most closely. What stood out to you, man?
Um, I would say, like, just to kind of go position by position, um, like our edge, our defensive end guys. I thought that Ethan Downs looked really good. You can tell he's a senior. He looks refined in everything that he's doing. I thought his get off looked pretty good. He was winning in one-on-ones quite a bit. High effort. I thought he looked really sharp out there. He just like, if I have a complaint of Ethan Downs or had one previously, it was just kind of the effort and energy and kind of the angriness in which he plays. And I thought he looked good for a practice day and a guy that's a senior. I thought he looked really sharp out there. And then our Mason Thomas, he's their best pass rusher, and it still shows. He's got a bunch of different tools. He can win with speed. His hands look good. He was working on a counter a little bit there in the one-on-one portion of the pass rush stuff. So he's still kind of working on adding some more tools there. But when he's healthy, you could tell he flies around out there, and he's difficult for those guys to block off the edge. PJ he still looks incredible in a jersey. I think he's still trying to find himself and find what's best for him. All right, I've got some things that I would probably tell him to do differently. I think he lines up way too wide whenever he's a pass rusher. I think his tools are like close to you tools, with the arm length and some of the length that he possesses. that does no good rushing from a really wide position. I mean, I think a lot of young guys feel like the further out I get, the easier it is for me to run around. And if you got a smart tackle, he's just going to stand there and wait on you to come to him. It's not really giving you much benefit. And I think that he did that a couple times, and he's still working on his pass rush tools and finding what's comfortable for him. I think he's still playing too high, which is going to be a big learning curve for him because of the great length. People can get into your chest if you're too high. So I think pad level for him is going to continue to be big. He still needs to work on all of those tools. Some of the young guys, there was some nice stuff going through there, but I would say right now, your two best guys are Ethan Downs and R. Mason Thomas. Those are the two most consistent guys.
What did you think of Woolard?
I thought he was solid. It kind of looks like he's maybe still feeling his way out. But I thought you get high effort stuff. I think he won a lot of pass rushes in 101 just by just kind of like a savvy reaction. And he was going against some of the tackles down the roster a little bit, but I think he won every one-on-one that I saw. So I think he's a solid piece for him. And Taylor Wine, I think, is a solid piece for him as well. I think those guys are going to have to make a big leap to crack the starting lineup. I think it's pretty firmly feels like it's Ethan Downs and R. Mason Thomas.
And then Trace Ford feels more of
Specialist type.
like a situational type of guy because of, and we've talked about it in the past, he doesn't have a ton of length.
No, but he looked good. He looks explosive. He looks fast. He had a couple really nice rushes himself. I think he looks good. I mean, that whole group, there's some good solid depth there. I think the main thing for me is we got to have PJ come on, and I'm not worried about it at all. I think it's going to come. He's still, he's still really young, and he's still got great tools. Looks great out there, and I think he'll be there before long. He'll probably, I would assume that he's going to be one of those guys that, from the first couple of practices in spring to the end, is probably going to make some big leaps.
I hope you're right. Now, what about the interior of the defensive line? What stood out to you about what you saw?
Jaden Jackson is everything that I've heard is legit. There's nothing about him that looks like a freshman whenever he's out there. He looks like almost like an old man, like a pro. Not an old. I don't mean an old man, like
a veteran.
The veteran. He's got the long hair coming out. He's one of the biggest guys out there. He's a lot of young guys are like, everything's so rushed and hurried and trying to go so fast. That's where a lot of the mistakes feel like they come from. He is like calm and confident and strong as hell. And he's at the number one rotation right now. It was him and Grayson Holton for the most part that I saw. Terry was rotating in, and there's some guys rotating in, but he looks really good. His pass rush, he's got such a strong push that, like, in the one-on-ones, he's got such a strong push, and whenever those lighter guys go to anchor, he just pulls them, and I thought he played the run really well. I was watching, like, in inside drill, his movement, like when they were moving the front and stuff, there was no hesitation. He knew where he was going. He was splitting double teams. He was holding point. I thought he looked really good. He looked like a legit, like, multi-year starter, and I don't know how, like, what does that mean that he's going to grow into? I have no idea.
With what I've seen from him, the couple of, practices and scrimmages I've been out to, at this point, I think I'll be really surprised if he doesn't start week 1.
Yeah.
I just
I
think
agree.
from an overall defensive tackle perspective, he might be the best they've got.
Yeah.
Now, if Halton can, if he can add a little weight and anchor a little better in the run game, I think he's the most kind of twitched up interior pass rusher they have. I don't even think that's a debate,
Yeah.
but all around playing the run, converting from stopping the run to a pass rusher, just straight up pass rush and third and long situations. The argument can be made that Jaden Jackson is already the best they've got,
Yeah. He could
which is
do,
exciting, but also a little worrisome.
yeah. He could go in there and give you rep after rep after rep of quality football. He's not going to get blown off the football. He's like you said, converting. Like all those things look really good. Um, I I think Grayson Holton looked really good to me. Um, you're right. I think he's like explode. Like he's the guy that brings the energy, the explosiveness, like the real production. Um, I know he's light, which it's harder to hold up over a bunch of reps the lighter you are, but he uses it to his benefit because of how quick he is. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he had a really nice season. He seems to be out all over the place when it comes to making plays out there. He was the guy that was always there making the big behind the line play or the nice sack. He looked good in one-on-ones. So, I feel good about it. They've got a couple of rotational guys that I thought were solid, but all in all, I thought the defensive line looked pretty good. When
All
you
right, let's
combine
just
the starting group of Downs, R. Mason Thomas, and when they had Jaden Jackson at nose and Grayson Holton as like the three, I mean that's a really solid group, both against the run and the pass.
the only problem is when you look at that group, only one of those guys has played, let's just call it like it is, significant football.
Yep.
And that's Downs.
Hmm.
The other three, and I know R. Mason Thomas, he would have played a ton of snaps last year if he wasn't so banged up.
Yeah.
But the
But
rest of
that's
that group, that's your starting group. It is an unproven group. Not saying they aren't extremely capable and talented, just unproven.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing with R. Mason Thomas that you've got to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Like he looks great. Can he be available for a full season? We haven't seen that yet. Okay, which that's not his fault. It's just kind of the nature of where things are. Ethan Downs has proven to be incredibly durable week in, week out. And, Grayson Holton has just kind of worked his way. He's been steady. He's gotten time and he's just continued to increase his workload. And Jaden Jackson, we don't know. Early signs look really good, but you're right. It's unproven.
Let's just work our way to the next level of the defense. Backer, I'm sure you had a very close eye on the inside backer group and what that group's looking like as a whole. What stood out to you?
First thing that stood out to me is, this was a regular practice. It wasn't a scrimmage. The first thing that stood out to me is the head football coach. I think he only came over to the linebacker individual for like maybe a minute. So he was over with the defensive line. He was with the edge guys a little bit. He was with the secondary guys for a little bit. So he was out there talking to recruits. So he was moving around. I think that comfort level with Zach Alley running that group is in a different area. Stutzman looked like exactly like you would think. He was on top of everything. He was communicating really well, getting guys lined up. Made some good plays out there. Um, I think Kip Lewis looks really good. I talked to him for a while. Ankle's feeling good. He's in a good spot right now. He was flying around. Told me he's about 218, which I know a lot of people get all worried about his weight, including the head coach. I don't worry about it at all. I think he's great at 218. So that group looked to be like that's that, and it's just one practice, and I'm sure that they've rotated those guys in and out, but that looked like your starting group right there. Canick, Kobe McKenzie, Lewis Carter, some group of those guys was kind of the number 2 group that was rotating through. But one thing you can say about this group of linebackers, that can all run, they're all really active. I think it's a good physical group. I'm happy with where they are. I think one of the things the entire group needs to continue to work on, and they are working on it, is being a factor in the underneath pass coverage. I mean, I think that's really the next step for this group as a whole.
Well, you sound pleased, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, there's been times where last spring when I went out, it was early practice. I remember going out and thinking, what are we going to do at linebacker? We can't play anyone other than Stutzman at linebacker at this time. And it's just not the case anymore. And that's a really good sign. They've developed some nice depth. It feels like a really tight knit group that works with one another. There's constant dialogue going on throughout practice. They're in a good place.
Secondary. A lot of different guys, a lot of veteran guys, some young guys, some freshmen that are getting first team reps. Got a lot going on in the back end of the defense, Ted. What'd you see? What do you think?
Yeah, first thing was at safety, I thought Peyton Bowen looked good. I really like Robert Spears Jennings. He runs around and he will absolutely like blast some guys. Super, super physical. I thought it's kind of crazy that safety's in the same spot where you go a year ago in spring practice. It was like a constant, like, you just hear coaches like screaming at safeties about rotations and where they're going to line up. And it's just so much smoother and calmer out there from the defensive end because everyone, is in a much better place mentally with knowing how to run things. It's just, there's not a lot of big plays getting behind them. They're in good position whenever they come up to tackle. I thought Hardy, the young kid, both Hardy and Boganowski look really good out there. I think they're going to be really good players. And a lot of times I'm still trying to figure out who everyone is with all the new numbers and everything. But I would say Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings, Hardy, and Boganowski stood out to me. It's especially Boganowski, he's got good size, good length. Robert Spears Jennings is huge and physical. Peyton Bowen looks like a vet out there, knows what he's doing. Everything is calm, not chaotic and panicked. Like the whole body language of the defense is totally different, if that makes sense. Like guys are like calm, like walking into their position, calm communication, hand signals and stuff. It's just a totally different vibe. And is that what you saw when you're out there?
Absolutely. And I think Zach Alley deserves a lot of credit. We've heard player after player after player on the defensive side of the ball talk about how he's simplified things, how he's made it easier for them to understand. And whether that's just the way that he can relate to the players because of his age or just something that he's been able to establish through his experience as a defensive coordinator the last couple of years, just, hey, this is how to simplify the message. It's clear to me whatever small changes he's made from how they're relaying the information to those guys, it's been very helpful because we've heard, a dozen guys talk about it at this point.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there's moments, I know there is, but the scene of our defense, like a mad scramble to get lined up and like right at the snap, there's chaos. I didn't hardly see any of that. And again, it wasn't this is a standard practice. It wasn't a scrimmage. Like whenever you're going live, and they did some move the ball stuff, but it's got a much better feel to it. I really liked it. At corner, um, I thought it was, I watched a little bit of the one-on-ones. I thought it was competitive. I like Des Malone. He's got really good size to him. And I think he was probably a little, I don't know, lost is probably isn't the right word, but trying to absorb everything. It looked like he was in a comfortable space out there. He was locked in. Kendall Dolby looked really good at the cheetah spot. He was locking guys down. Again, it's like, it's hard to I guess it's hard for me to put into words like how it looks whenever a guy is totally confident in where he's supposed to be and what his responsibility is. And it's not like everyone looks like so like laser focused and intense. It's almost like calm and relaxed. And that's how I thought Kendall Dolby looked at Cheetah. It looked really good. I mean, outside of some run fits in inside drill that I thought were just a little bit soft and rounded by the backers, and the safeties coming up maybe a little late and leaving some space that made it harder to tackle. Defensively, it's hard to come up with a bunch of gripes. I thought that they're just in a really good place right now, it looks like.
All right, let's talk about the offense then. I can't wait. What stood out to you about what you saw from the offense?
Where do you want to start, position group wise, or
Let's start on a positive note. What position group did you think looked the best? What were you most pleased with what you saw from the offensive side of things?
as a position group, I would have to say wide receiver. I thought the wide receiver was the best looking position group. Burks, as advertised. Jaden Gibson looked really good.
He looks so much more fluid and confident, even than he did late last year. I've been really, really pleased with the step that he has taken. I just think I think he looks not like a completely different guy, but to me, he's just playing so much faster than he did in the past.
Yeah. And they do their W drill, which is kind of like the Oklahoma drill at 3 levels, where you got an O-line, D-line, you got a backer tight end, and then you got a secondary receiver, and they're all kind of going at the same time. Jade Gibson is the guy, like, they have to tell him to get out. He takes so many reps. Like, he can't wait to get up there and fight and scrap with the DBs and talk trash. I love it. I think it's great. And as long as he keeps all of that channeled in the right spot, I like that he plays with that type of emotion and anger, I guess. He looks good. He looked really good running routes in one-on-ones. When he runs a little stutter fade route and you've got your back to the football as a defensive back, it's like you're just praying that you get in the way and find the football. He's so tall and good at going over the top. So I'd have to say wide receiver. Pedway looked good. He looked incredibly fast. They're a little banged up right now, so some guys were out. It's nothing serious. They were there and kind of walking around, but I thought wide receiver looked sharp.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. You liked what you saw from the wide receiver group. What group offensively did you watch and go,
Well, we had talked about the offensive line coming into it, so I wasn't expecting to show up and see an offensive line that looked like a bunch of vets out there that were going to be putting people in lockdown. So I guess I wasn't too disappointed in the offensive line. And maybe it was just the practice, but I thought running back was shockingly unremarkable, if that makes sense. I didn't see much of a difference, like, Sawchuk and Hicks and, seeing the guys rotate through. I just didn't see much of a difference really from anyone. And maybe it's hard. It can be hard in inside drill to see that. And, moving the ball. There was a couple of nice plays when they were moving the ball in team, but I found running back to be unremarkable, if that makes sense.
I have not really seen any play where I've been like, wow. And our hope is that wow guy emerges between now and when we kick this thing off in the fall. I don't care who it is. Sawchuk, Hicks, Barnes, doesn't matter. I feel like those are your three main guys at this point. Now you've got Franklin, the transfer, who I think is more. I don't know if he's an insurance policy in case another guy goes down, or I'm not exactly sure where he fits into the picture. But yeah, I don't. With what I've seen, I haven't seen a running back where you're just blown away by some of the individual plays that they've made.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's
Yeah.
not, maybe Caleb Hicks turns into that guy. I don't know, but it doesn't sound like either of us have seen it up to this point.
Yeah. And it's weird, like in practice, I feel like that's fairly normal at running back. In inside drill, if they make a big move, it's like in a small spot and it doesn't, like, you're not chasing them down the field for 80 yards. Like when you are in a move the ball period, and someone does make a big play, it kind of feels like almost feels like instead of making a great play, it was like a mess up by the defense, if that makes sense. So it may have just been kind of the nature of the practice, but
I do think the way that position has looked the last couple of years, it probably is one of the reasons we feel the way that we feel right now.
yeah,
That
yeah, I think
probably
that's
that
good.
probably's at work here. Whether it's subconscious or not, I'm not smart enough to figure all that out. But I think the lack of wow plays, big explosive runs these last couple seasons maybe has us doubting the group as a whole a little bit.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll say if looks could kill, then Caleb Hicks, man, he's got muscles in his arms that I didn't even know existed. I mean, it's just he is
It,
just
it
shredded.
is it is not even close. You line the running backs up on the roster right now. You're picking zero. Like if you're playing dodgeball, you're playing basketball, whatever you're playing, you're going, give me zero. I want zero on my team. He
Just
he he
maybe,
looks the part. There's no doubt about it.
yeah, just for the intimidation factor alone, I think. And he looks sharp carrying the ball. That's not to say that, it doesn't translate. He does. He looks sharp carrying the ball, but and we'll get to this, but it's got to be said that the offensive line is probably creating a rough go of it in the spring for the running backs. I will say though, I kind of the wow factor at practice for me, anyways, is Bauer Sharp. Whenever I walked out of the tunnel and they were in stretch, or just getting ready to get into stretch, first thing I see is number 10, piped up, gigantic arms. He's got his jersey rolled up, old school style. I mean, and he is just like kind of the alpha of the offense. He's out there getting everyone going. He was the leader of the stretch yell and everything. Like watching him go through all the drills, the individual drills at tight end, special teams periods. He kind of, it feels like he leads everything out there. And he plays mad. He
Yes.
practices mad, which I like.
Same. The question is, how much of a weapon can he be?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know me. I am all about the boring parts of football, blocking for tight ends. That's the boring stuff, right? Doing the dirty work. You need that guy, but We also it's been a long time since we've had a tight end that can change a game.
Yeah.
That's where I just don't know if he's that type of guy. And I'm not sure we'll know till the season. So
Yeah.
I'm really pleased with what we've seen from him so far. Everything we heard about when it comes to his intensity in winter workouts, that is definitely translating to the practice field in the spring. But ultimately, I mean, the guy's going to be judged on, hey, is he a true difference maker in the passing game at the tight end spot? And I don't know if we're going to know that until the fall.
In what looked like a scene out of a movie, like right in like the last rep of individual, he's blocking like the single sled, that's got like the rollover bar. And, he blocks it. He's like pushing it and he like tilts it and buries it into the ground, makes it look like it weighs like 5 pounds. Then they blow the whistle and I'm watching the equipment guy, like he can't even budge the sled, to move it off there. And he's like, really, and it was a big dude and he's trying to push it, couldn't get anywhere. Then like a bunch of guys had to grab it, push it off. It made it look pretty funny. But he looked good. He looked good in one-on-ones. He can run. He's got some shake at the top of his routes. I mean, I think how big of a piece of the offense he is probably going to be determined by how effective they are at building him into it and making him a part of it. Cause like it feels like all the tools are there.
He has, and I don't think this is over dramatic. I think he's got the chance to be the best all around tight end we've seen in a while.
Yes. Yeah. In a long while. Again, it depends on how you're able to build him into the offense. We got to be able to protect the passer, build a run game, and get him involved. It's really not as easy to get him involved as it is, say, Burks. Well, you run bubble and tunnel and RPO and stuff all day to a guy like Burks. It's going to be easy to get him the ball in the slot. It's not going to be nearly as easy to get the ball to a tight end. So we're going to have to be able to build that as an offense. But if we can, he can be a dangerous weapon. And I just love that it should really help out our play action game.
I'm with you. Only other spots on the offense are you touched on O-line a little bit. You haven't mentioned quarterback at all. So I'll let you finish your evaluation. Where are we going next?
Offensive line, I thought we actually looked pretty good, and you talked about this, and I kind of echo. I saw exactly what you had talked about previously. I thought Ozida looked pretty good at guard, and I thought Pobechi looked really good at guard. He plays angry. He's strong. He can anchor. Looks like he's, to me, it looked like he was comfortable out there, like wasn't guessing, knew who to block, knew where he was going. Tackle was tough. Tackle was tough. They were rotating different guys through and they were having a hard time. And, I thought Bates at center, it's kind of hard to tell. Is it like, I know he's young and he's going through it, but part of it has to be that he's blocking Jaden Jackson, who is strong as hell, and that's a difficult thing for him to deal with now.
And I hear you, but the guy's a true freshman.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're clearly very excited about what Jaden Jackson is going to be as a player. Hell, we're excited about what he already is as a player. But it's your second year in the system. You got to be able to block a true freshman more often than not.
Yeah.
If you want to be the starting center at Oklahoma, I think that's a fair thing to say.
From what I didn't spend there's a lot to watch out there, so I didn't spend, the whole practice watching Josh Bates. But from having been there before and having seen guys in a position like that, I feel like one of the things holding him back is he knows that he's had a rough go of it, and you can almost see it in his body language before the snap. And I think that puts you in a, instead of just like cutting loose and going out there and selling out on every play, knowing where you're supposed to be, it's like there's the cloud hanging over of what if I get beat again, if that
Right.
makes sense. And I can
Yeah.
kind of sense it in the body language. But I thought Eugene Brooks looked pretty good. Now I saw him mainly in the one-on-one period, and he looked like he was calm and confident, and he was really strong anchoring. He had a couple of really nice reps. Thought he looked good. I thought they did some nice things in inside drill, some pullers and stuff. They were opening up some seams out there that looked pretty good. So, I think the tackle position, from what I gathered, looks like it's going to be where a lot of the stress is going to be as we get closer and closer to the season. Who can step up there and find some consistency?
Was it still Tarquin and Taylor out there with the first group for you?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. And
It's
Taylor looked
interesting.
good at times, but then he had a couple of bad reps in one-on-ones.
I think they're just a little limited size wise and athletically, both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume the hope is Sexton gets completely healthy and develops into the guy that you think he's going to be, and that's your left tackle. The right tackle spot, I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe it is something that, hey, you've got to seriously address in the spring portal window. Because with what I've seen, they don't have two starting tackles that you're going to feel really good about at this point. Now, you can get a lot better between now and September. You absolutely
Yep.
can. But are you just going to hope that development happens? I don't know. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do in the spring portal window at the tackle spot and maybe even at the center spot. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It'd be interesting to see, but I like both Ozida and Fabechi at guard. I thought both those guys looked really solid.
Ozida, just such an interesting build for a guard.
He is. He
But
is.
I like a lot of what I've seen from him. And I just think at this point, if he's got everything down, if Wee Woo's got everything down mentally, physically, he's the best they've got.
Yeah.
I mean, you walk out there and you go, 54 looks good.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
what'd you think of the QBs?
Unremarkable. I think maybe it was just because standard practice, you don't get a whole lot of running around out there. I I thought Hawkins, he took off once in team, and it's like that's where he's like really different. Is we've had guys that move really well with the football and run well, and I think Jackson Arnold runs well with the football, but with the quickness that he pulls it down, gets to full speed, and is already downfield, bearing down on the defense who's in coverage, is really impressive. Um, part of it may be that he's a freshman and he looks to run way quicker. And Jackson Arnold in a practice setting is looking to extend the play and find someone downfield and being a little more patient. But that's really kind of the difference I saw between the two. I thought Jackson Arnold looks the part. He He looks good. He made some really nice throws. I was watching him one-on-ones. Looked really sharp, moving the ball in team. Looked really sharp, in command of the offense. Made some nice throws, but kind of the nature of practice, I didn't get a lot of opportunity to dial in on the quarterbacks, if that makes sense. I was watching the one-on-ones with pass rush while they were doing Skelly, so, you know,
That's more fun. I mean, that's the you made the proper choice. Come
it
on.
is. It is.
I just think it's hard to at this point, it's really hard to judge Jackson Arnold with the issues they've had up front.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you don't have the run game going, and just thinking about to the scrimmage this Thursday, like didn't get a lot going in the run game again, that really limits what you can do offensively. I mean, it just does. So it's kind of hard to judge what he's been this spring. He's certainly made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
And he's more comfortable in the leadership role and all of those things. And Michael Hawkins did make some freshman mistakes in that scrimmage. But I just think that I think the quarterback position is going to be fine. I think it's going to be fine. You just have to get kind of sure things up front.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that'll come.
Which is the problem 95% of college football teams have.
That's what I was going to say. It's like I think it's more pronounced right now with the level of where our defense is. It makes it really stick out. But we've kind of said the same exact thing the last 3 or 4 years in a row. And they've continued to get it together and put a solid group out there. And I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I do think it's an interesting point. Like, we'll see what happens in the post spring transfer portal window.
I trust Beatonbow to put it together, man.
Yeah, I do too.
I just do. All right, let's get to call your shot. We asked you guys, what is your number one question about OU right now at this point in spring practice? This first one comes from Jordan Bradley. And it's a great question because I don't think you mentioned this guy's name. He asked, what does McCullough look like at backer?
He looked good. Yeah, he was out there. He was moving around good. Looked sharp. He was down there doing some one-on-ones. He did some one-on-one pass rush as well, which was good. I thought he looked really sharp, moved well. He looked good in individual with his hands, and he was kind of a fish out of water at this point last year doing the linebacker stuff. He looks totally different right now. So he's come a long way.
I'm not sure with the depth that they've got at the cheetah spot and the depth they have at inside backer. I don't know if he's going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be a starter. What I do think he can be is a guy that comes in and brings just some natural pass rushing ability. Mm-hmm. Whether they line him up inside at an inside backer spot and he's kind of mugged up to the line of scrimmage, they bring him out on the edge. He also is he's a bit of a conundrum for offenses. So when you're calling protection, like, do you identify him as a backer? Is he a down lineman? Because you have to communicate that all as an offensive line. You got to communicate that to the back. So if he comes in, like, how do you treat him? Mm-hmm. And I think you can create some favorable matchups with him. I just don't know with what we saw from him a year ago, Ted. I just don't know if he has a position where he really fits into the defense.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I think whenever offenses go big personnel, he'll be out there playing the cheetah spot. And I think when offenses, like whenever we decide to go in a 3-down look and you've got the extra overhang players, I think that's where you could see him, because you can bring him with pressures. You can, the coverage can be quite a bit easier where you just play a flat zone blitz on the other side, and you can do a lot of things. I think that's probably the two areas you're going to see him the most. But I just watching him in individual, didn't get to see much of it in inside drill, because they didn't do any heavy personnel stuff. But he looks like he's way better using his hands and his pad level. So hopefully that translates into some short yardage goal line type of stuff whenever he is going to be out there.
Yep. All right. This last one comes from Sooner Said. And this is definitely directed at you, Ted. He said, if the season started tomorrow with everyone healthy, who's the starting 11 on defense? What a look of contemplation from you.
Ethan Downs, R. Mason Thomas, Jaden Jackson, Grayson Holton, Stutzman, Kip Lewis, Kendall Dolby at Cheetah, Bowman and Robert Spears Jennings. And then everyone healthy would be Gentry Williams is in, Woody Washington or Des Malone.
And then I would say Peyton Bowen, kind of that 6 DB if you want to make it a 12 starter situation.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, could be wrong on that, could be wrong at safety. That's just kind of the feeling I get. But
well, there you go, Sooner Said.
I feel comfortable with, like, I could interchange quite a few guys into that lineup and feel great about it. Like, I'm curious to see where Justin Harrington ends up. Got to talk to him a little bit there. He's been cleared, but they're just taking it slow with him. Doesn't have a whole lot to prove. They know what they're going to get out of him. So see how he factors in. I mean, corner is the hard one is corner, because Gentry Williams isn't out there. And, there's some guys that you really like. It's just see who comes out the most consistent with that rotation. I think you could see any number of guys at corner.
And it wouldn't shock me. I don't know. Dolby's he's looked like such a natural fit at that Cheetah spot. But if you want to get Bowen in at Cheetah and bump Dolby out to corner, I think they'd feel more than comfortable with that. There's a lot of options. I think the secondary is where you will see the most guys play. I think they're going to play a ton of guys in the secondary.
I think so too. They're deep. Safety's incredibly deep. So where they get those guys all on the field, I don't know. But I feel good about the starting 11 is going to look really good.
Yep. You've said it. You've got the fan base fired up. It's going to be the best defense we've seen around here in a long time. Better not be wrong.
I've been wrong before. It could definitely happen again.
Let's get to football, guys, talking basketball. But first, Love's Travel Stops is now offering a nationwide 10-cent per gallon discount on gas and auto diesel. Just download the Love's Connect app and scan your barcode at the prompt on screen and watch that price drop 10 cents per gallon. Across the country, the Love's Connect app unlocks exclusive deals that can help any traveler plan their route or meal on the highway. So before you hit the road, be sure to download the Love's Connect app to save 10 cents per gallon and experience the country's best highway hospitality at Love's Travel Stops. Love's also has you covered if you get your phone charger or headphones with their expanded mobile to-go zone. And of course, don't forget to grab yourself some of that delicious Java Amore.
And celebrate with a Schooner All-American Ale, the official craft beer of OU Athletics from Coop Ale Works. Named after the iconic Sooner schooner that races across Owen Field after an OU score, you can join in on the celebration with an ice-cold beer from Coop Ale Works. You can enjoy it at the Palace on the Prairie, at OU athletic events, at the bar, the tailgate, and in the comfort of your own home. For more information on Schooner All-American Ale, visit schoonerale.com. Must be 21 to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Schooner All-American Ale, the taste of game day.
And we love Simple Modern. Simple Modern is an Oklahoma-owned drinkware company who launched the best cups it's ever made with its new signature line this month. They are 100% leak proof, which is what everyone needs with an on the go cup. And it has a ceramic coating on the top of the double insulated stainless steel to preserve the beverage's taste while still keeping it cold and hot for hours. And even better, Simple Modern exists to give generously, donating 10% of all profits so you can know you're helping better Oklahoma and beyond with every purchase. Check it all out at simplemodern.com today. Football Guys Talking Basketball, FGTB. Ted, let's start with Sooners hoops. So we've got Javion McCollum, transfer portal. Otega Owe, transfer portal. Milos Uzan, transfer portal. Hughley, transfer portal. And now Jalon Moore has declared for the NBA draft. Now, he can still come back to OU if he doesn't like the feedback he gets during the pre-draft process. But man, we were really hoping he would just say he was coming back for next season. It hurts. Kinda. I don't know. The uncertainty maybe is the worst part, Ted.
Yeah. You know, the little release he put out, it did not feel like I'm going to see what the draft process is like, and then I may be back. It felt like a goodbye.
Like a nice goodbye.
Yeah, it did. But
the emotional graphic.
Yeah, he clearly incredibly athletic. Still feels like he's kind of a raw talent that maybe has a much higher upside. So I don't like, what do you think his NBA draft prospects are?
I think he would be drafted. I think someone would see his athletic traits and go, you know what, he's worth the second round pick at some point. And I think there's going to be a coaching staff out there, a development staff out there that goes, hey, we can sharpen this guy's basketball tools.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line for me is he's an NBA athlete. And if you have the level of athleticism to play in the league, there's a lot of people in that league that think, hey, we can get you there from a skill development standpoint. It's very similar to the NFL. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you have the measurables? You do? Okay. We will get you to your full potential if you have the measurables and the ability. And I think he's one of those guys, but there's no doubt he's going to get some feedback that he doesn't exactly like during the pre-draft process. And I just don't know if that will convince him to come back to Norman for a year, or will an NBA team give him a lot of constructive criticism and say, hey, come in, we'll draft you. You'll play in the G League. We'll be working with you one-on-one every single day on your development. I just don't know. But I just don't think there's any doubt in my mind. He's an NBA athlete. The question is, does he have the basketball skill to stick in the league?
Yeah. I don't know. But it feels like we got ourselves a full reset on the basketball roster.
I looked it up. Top 6 scorers. McCollum, Owe, Moore, Suarez, Uzan, Hughley. Bye-bye. Top 6.
Well, I think the situation is frustrating, but there's nothing that says that you can't go to the transfer portal, such as the operation these days for not just Oklahoma, a bunch of people. Nothing says that you can't go to the transfer portal and upgrade on some, if not all, of those spots.
You have to, let's be real, you got to have the NIL dollars. And I'm not entirely sure where the basketball program is with all that right now. I think it's gotten better. I don't think they are, I have no clue, but I assume they're not in the same tax bracket as your Kansases and your Kentuckys and those type of programs. But man, I feel like this was the one thing that OU fans were holding on, like, hey, Jalon Moore's going to come back. We're going to be able to build around him a little bit. And he's not for sure gone, but it did feel, when I saw the graphic, it felt like a bit of a gut punch. I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know how the basketball NIL. I guess I don't know where Oklahoma stacks up. It's interesting because you have a bunch of D1 schools, and there's a bunch of schools like, for example, you know, UConn. That's a basketball school. I know they got a football program. They've talked a lot about dropping it, but you know where the NIL at UConn is aimed, right? You know where the NIL at Duke is aimed, and I know North Carolina's football program has come around a little bit, but like, at the basketball schools that where it's aimed. But I don't know. It feels like there's probably a really fast drop off with your top schools NIL and then what everyone else puts to NIL for basketball. So I don't know where we stack up. I don't think we're at the top of the list by any stretch, but I mean, they put together a pretty good transfer portal class a year ago. I'm kind of in a spot to believe that they should be able to do it again.
Yeah, and it just makes it really challenging for Porter Moser.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's people out there going, well, it's his job to keep these guys and to get them to come play at Oklahoma for another season. And I understand that, but it's really hard to establish some culture and some continuity, right? The culture wall. It's really
Yeah.
hard to establish that when you've got a new starting lineup each year.
And I know it's up to Porter Moser to keep those guys, but it gets to a certain point where it doesn't matter who the head coach is or how good the team was. The transfer portal is just the thing to do right now in college hoops. I mean, there's good players at good schools that had good seasons that are still jumping in the transfer portal. So, like, I don't know that you can point the finger and blame the coach for guys jumping in the portal. Had Oklahoma made the tournament, there's still a really good chance that all of these guys would still have done the same exact thing.
Yeah, see what you can get on the open market. I
When
I
there's
think that
nothing to lose.
all these guys are just taking advantage of the rules, including Jalon Moore. I think Jalon Moore's making a smart decision.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that in college basketball, you can enter your name in the draft, go through all of that pre-draft process, talk to a bunch of NBA teams on where they think you need to get better. That's incredibly valuable to him, and still return to school and then work on all that stuff. Like, that's incredibly valuable for Jalon Moore. Just the uncertainty makes it tough on Porter. Like, do you save the roster spot? I guess you have to,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see who ends up. This is kind of where I'm at with college basketball, or at least with OU basketball. Let me know in August
Yeah.
who's on
Yeah.
the team, and then I will support them. I will support them. But man, it's getting tough to keep track of all this stuff.
I know. I know it. Yeah.
Let's talk some Thunder. Thunder have lost 3 in a row. Now they play Charlotte today. We're recording before that game takes place. I fully anticipate them winning that game, but they have not had SGA and Jalen Williams for the last 3 games, and they've lost the last 3 games. Philly, Boston, and then the Pacers. But still in position, Ted, to get one of the top 2 seeds. You've got 4 home games left after their game against Charlotte today. You've got Sacramento, San Antonio, Milwaukee, and a red hot Dallas. They still have a shot at the number 1 seed. Minnesota and Denver, actually, they play each other this week. So one of those teams is going to take a loss in that one. It's going to be a huge game for the standings, but I guess all that really matters is that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams are healthy when the playoffs start, right? I mean, I guess that is way more important than pushing for the number 1 seed, even though if you end up having to go to Denver in the conference finals, there's no doubt that is a massive home court advantage with the altitude and all that stuff. But I guess you don't really worry about that. All you're worried about is that your 2 best players are healthy and ready to go for when the playoffs start.
And you believe they will be, right?
Yes. I'd be very surprised if they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of with you. I think really just being in the top 4 in the seeding is kind of the most important part. If you get to the conference finals, then you'll cross that bridge whenever you get there. It's going to be difficult to navigate that, even if you have the home court. But yeah, just making sure that those guys are healthy and ready to roll is the most important thing.
So there are a couple different places that put out some first round like playoff opponent probabilities, and one of them is called playoff status. And right now, because this is the last week of the regular season in the NBA, want to take a guess who has who the Thunder have the highest percentage chance of playing in the first round of the playoffs?
Lakers.
Suns.
Okay.
Kevin Durant and the Suns. Right now, 31% chance to play the Suns, 24% chance for the Thunder playing the Pelicans, 21% Kings, 17% Lakers, and then a pretty significant drop off, 5% Warriors, 3% Mavericks. There are a lot of variables.
I forgot the Lakers have started to gear up for a playoff. They've won like 9 or 10 in a row, haven't they?
Yeah,
something like that.
They're starting to look pretty solid.
Yeah,
I think we've made ourselves clear on our stance that I'm good with missing the Lakers in the first round.
Yep.
But
Suns would be fun, man. That'd be good.
Could you imagine?
It'd be awesome.
And I know that they've got Bradley Beal and Durant and Booker. I get all that, but the storylines, that'd be so much fun. Little turmoil in Phoenix with that new owner as well. I just think it would just be wildly entertaining. And if you can't beat the Suns with how they've struggled at times this year, if you can't beat them in the first round, then you got to reassess some of the aspects of the team. So I'd be all for that first round matchup. That'd be so much fun.
It's like, here's the official sign that everything has come kind of full circle, right? Like we are, like that would be really cool. It'd be really cool.
Yeah. So we'll see how this all shakes out for the Thunder, but it's just really exciting to have meaningful basketball in April again. I mean, it is going to be awesome. And I'm starting to gear up the vocal cords for playoff basketball, Ted, doing some voice exercises every day to make sure that ready to scream at some people. Can't wait. Let's finish up with our winners and losers of the weekend. But first,
all right, listen up, beef lovers. How does 2 juicy ribeyes, 2 perfectly marbled New York strips, 2 melt in your mouth fillets, and 12 steak burgers sound? Didier Ranch is celebrating the boss's birthday with a special on their best-selling box, the Boss Box. Get yours today and add the code Oklahoma15 at checkout to get an additional 15% off your order at DidierRanch.com. This is a limited time only special, and you don't want to miss out. This box is truly fit for a boss.
And head to the garage for hand smashed patties, butter toasted buns, and some ice cold beer. It's the perfect spot to watch any big game. And with all garage locations being open at 10 p.m. or later every night, it's the go-to late night spot. Visit eatatthegarage.com to find a location near you and order online from the garage in your neighborhood. As always, Ted, kicks off. Who do you have as your winner of the weekend? It's kind of tough because the OU Texas softball series has not concluded.
Yeah.
Bedlam baseball has not concluded. Now that I think about it, we were recording at a terrible time, but it's just you've got stuff going on this afternoon. I'm sorry, but the women's Final Four or the women's championship game hasn't been played. But we're doing our best, people. We're doing our best.
Well, on that's kind of the winner is the national championship matchups we got. For the men, Purdue and UConn. I don't know if it's what everyone necessarily wanted, but I think you got the two best teams. All right. So two best teams to square off and see who gets the national championship. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. And even for the women, that's going to be interesting. You got Iowa and South Carolina. See if for the television ratings, I think that's probably the best bet that they could have got. So it's going to be fun, man. I think the matchups are interesting for the Purdue UConn game. It's what you want. The two best teams playing for the championship on the final game.
I'll be the first to admit I do not enjoy watching Purdue play. I don't. I'm a bigger fan of spreading things out, but that doesn't mean I don't respect the absolute hell out of that team. I got a ton of respect for Zach Edey and the way that he's improved over the last couple seasons. It's just not extremely aesthetically pleasing for me to watch. I like watching UConn more. I think UConn's going to win the game. But Purdue, from losing to Fairleigh Dickinson last year in the first round to playing for the national title, it's pretty cool, man. I know that Virginia did it a while back. I get that. Remember, they lost to UMBC, then went and won it the next year. But it's a hell of an accomplishment for Purdue. I just don't particularly like watching them play. That game against NC State, that was a tough watch for me.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, a lot of that is kind of built into the championship. Like, who can dictate pace and style of the game, right? Is probably ultimately who's going to be able to come out as the winner.
I thought UConn's game against Alabama, it was more competitive than the final score was. But I thought they completely controlled the pace of the game for the most part. Alabama couldn't get out and run. I just thought that UConn can continue to control the paint throughout that game. I thought that was the biggest difference in the game. I thought Bama played pretty well.
Yeah.
They needed UConn to turn it over more. They needed them to have a bad day shooting the ball, and they just didn't. I thought Alabama did some really good things, but UConn, they showed what they were made of, man. Bama had a couple runs in that second half, and both times UConn said, okay, and bounced back with a run of their own. That's what championship teams are made of. And I find this hilarious. UConn has just smashed people throughout the last couple of years. And people going, well, we don't know how they'll respond in a tight game. Like, they're so good that they're just killing everyone. I think they're going to be fine in a tight game, guys. I find that talking point very funny. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of the same conversation last night in the OU Texas softball game that, this is unfamiliar territory for Oklahoma. It's really not, I know that they haven't lost very many games over the last couple of years, but they've been behind plenty of times. They've been in plenty of tight games. So I don't think that scenario would have played out any differently. It's like you have to be a worse team to be a better team. Is that what you're trying to tell me with
Yeah,
that? I
I
don't think that
just
works.
hey, you should beat people by less more often. I just don't understand that. What
Right.
since you brought it up, and that series will be decided later today. What'd you think about the play at the plate?
I thought it was the right call.
So did I. Dang it. And I credit to the broadcast. I thought they did a great job of describing it and laying out why it
Yeah.
was an obstruction. That doesn't mean that we should be happy about it. We can still complain, but they did a pretty fantastic job of explaining why that was the right call. And credit to catcher for holding on to that. I thought she was out cold for a second.
Yeah. Well, what I thought was awesome is they got exactly what they wanted. All right. They replaced they got the pinch runner on first that they wanted. They got the hit that they wanted. Like they knew that this is what it was going to come down to, and it was just whether or not if Texas was able to make the play. Credit them for doing it. It was really close. When I first saw it in live action, and the first time I saw like the fact that they were going to challenge, I was like, oh, okay, like they may be onto something here. But then after watching a couple more replays, I think the right call was made.
Ultimately, got a got a pretty lucky break too. With
Yes.
I forget who it was for Texas that was on
Left
second,
on
left
second, yeah.
early, but that's what kind of left the door open for Oklahoma in that game. Let's just
That
be
was a
real.
huge swing. Yeah. Because it was 4-1
Yeah,
and goes back to 2-1 with an out. Like there was bases loaded with no outs, I think, or something was the situation. Now, yeah, that was huge.
is that
But
the only rule that penalizes a team more than a team fumbling through the end zone? I mean, that is like that
it
is a
is.
brutal punishment of a rule.
It was. Yeah, I what I I'm sure I had seen it before and knew it at one point, but I whenever that first happened, I was unsure of what the final result of that was going to be. So yeah, that's a devastating uh like but you leave early. Like how else are you supposed to? That's kind of how you have to rule it,
I,
so I'll say this, that was a very, very entertaining softball game, start to finish.
I'm with you. Anything else on the Final Four on the title game matchups?
No, that's it.
Only thing I have is I'm gonna miss DJ Burns, man.
Yeah.
And also, I saw some quotes from him saying he's not interested in playing football. DJ, just listen to us, man. Just give it a shot. Just give it a
I think
shot.
there's a chance his mind may change on that pretty quickly
Yeah.
when he gets a chance to maybe sit down and have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah. Money will make you change your mind quickly.
He's far more likely to make a lot of money doing that than he is in the NBA, right?
Yeah, he's not an NBA player.
That's kind of what I'm saying.
I I mean, some people want to be like, oh, he's just a little shorter than Jokic. Jokic is massive and the best player in the world. Please don't compare DJ Birds to Jokic, people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are just a little shorter than Jokic. That doesn't
Yeah.
really mean anything.
He's like, guy could see things before they happen. He's like a basketball genius. I just want to see a couple pass sets, DJ. That's it. We can get to run blocking later. Can you protect or can you not? That's all I need to know.
That's right.
Who do you have as your loser of the weekend?
Oh, I had to go with the Arlington Renegades. Oh, what a
Mm.
good game. It was a fun game, entertaining game, back and forth, tight, missed a late field goal. And then the defense had played really sharp most of the day, and then gave up some big chunk plays there at the end, and field goal ended it for him. I was at when they got down late, or whenever the clock was late and they were down in their own territory, I was hoping they were just going to let them score to try and get the ball back. But, it was one of those things where they kept him out of the end zone, and, it was just an easy little chip shot field goal there for St. Louis. But fun game, some good names in that game to watch, and highly competitive, which is what you want.
Marcel Aitman had himself a day.
Yep.
He is. How is a guy like that not on an NFL roster?
I don't know.
Big, can run. Now I'm curious as to how dialed in OU fans are to the Renegade stuff. Do you guys talk about it on your local show?
Yeah, we do. We have Bob on every Tuesday, and we talk about it with him. And he hits some other OU stuff, but now that they're in season, it's mainly whenever he's on, we're mainly talking about the Renegades. And you got 3 linemen from OU: Bobby Evans, Adrian Ely, Samia. Did you see that play LaRon Stokes made late? Oh my God, that was nice, and looks like he's put on some size, is playing the interior defensive line spot. And Jalen Redmond is there as well, so it was pretty cool. It was a good product.
Yeah, and credit to those St. Louis fans.
They pack it in, man. That was cool.
They said 40-something thousand.
Yeah.
I mean, just watching it from the couch, it sounded loud, like loud.
It did. They were
AJ McCarron getting treated like he's Patrick Mahomes by the people of St. Louis. I mean,
I know.
That was pretty awesome.
It was cool. And I don't know if that's like, I don't know if they're like really cheering for their team, or if that's like directed at the NFL for stealing their NFL team. You know what I'm saying?
It's really still all anger channeled at Stan Kroenke.
Yes, I think that's what it is. But it made for a great environment. I thought it was a well played football game. I was, not just me. We had a bunch of people at the house. We were all entertained by it. There's a lot of good stuff on TV last night, sports wise.
One thing I like about the UFL stuff is the creativity on the 2-point plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. It's fun seeing they ran. I think the Battlehawks ran a version of counter where there were like 6 different people going different directions.
Yeah.
It put my mind into pretzel.
I think it was just the 1-point play, but the extra point that the Renegades got late was an awesome play. But I don't know who it was that threw that pass, got hemmed up there by D lineman in the back. Feels like a reverse pass, and came out of it and threw a strike down the middle to a receiver in the end zone. That was cool.
Yeah. So it's a fun product, but now I'll be more dialed into the Renegade stuff.
Yeah.
We can talk about it a little more. Everyone loves Bob. He's the best.
Oh, he's the best. We got a live mic'd up, are you kidding me, on national television last night. It was awesome.
It's the best. You kidding me? Renegades. We need to go to a game.
I know.
We'll find one. Let's pick one. Let's go. All right, let's get to my winner and loser of the weekend. But first, attention business owners, you need Insurica in your life. Insurica is one of the country's largest insurance brokers with 30 offices throughout Oklahoma, Texas, and the Southwest. Insurica is able to customize programs by accessing the latest information from many insurance carriers. They compare and contrast coverage offerings and pricing in order to design a cost-effective, comprehensive program to meet your business's specific needs. If your business partners with Insurica, you'll save huge amounts of money and take back control of your total cost of risk. If your business wants to be best in class, connect with Insurica at insurica.com. That's INSURICA.com.
And head to opolisclothing.com for our podcast merchandise and the best OU gear out there. That's OPOLIS clothing.com. Use promo code TED, TED, for 10% off. That's opolisclothing.com. Use promo code TED for 10% off. Buttery soft and 10% off.
For my winner of the weekend, thought about going with former Former Sooner. Boomer. Combined them. How about that? Former Sooner. Lane Johnson. The Wrestlemania appearance with Jason Kelce. That was so good.
Those two guys are kind of made for that.
Oh, no doubt about it. Now, the luchador masks, fantastic. I can only imagine how cool it was for those guys watching Rey Mysterio do that off the turn. Like, that had to be so fun to witness in person. It just seemed like an awesome scene. But my favorite part about it is, they get up on the turnbuckle, they're getting the crowd going after it. They both rip their shirts off, and it makes you realize just how massive and like a ridiculous human being Lane is. He was just towering over everyone else in the ring.
It's crazy. He is like made to play offensive tackle in the NFL. The craziest part about it though is I was watching Rey Mysterio Jr. do that when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
He's been doing that for like 30 years. It's nuts.
Hey, when you got it, man. I was hoping that because Kelce is retired, I was hoping they were going to send him off the top rope.
Yeah.
I was hoping they were going to do something crazy with him. Lane wasn't going to do that. He's got more football to play, but I was hoping that they'd try something really, really fun with Kelce, but it didn't end up happening. But him throwing against the guy against the pole it was fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, that was fun. They could pull that off every now and then. They'd get better and better at it, but like those two guys were made. If the NFL didn't exist, firmly believe that those two guys would be in the WWE.
Oh, no doubt. But my winner of the weekend, this has kind of dominated the college football conversation over the last several days. The College Football Super League. As proposed by a group called College Sports Tomorrow. And it's an interesting group. Several school presidents, some very influential executives with ties to college football. Here's the system. 80-team Super League, Ted. Top 70 programs are all members of what used to be the Power Five, plus Notre Dame and SMU. Those 70 programs would be permanent members in 7 10-team divisions. The other 10 to round out the 80 would come from the other 50, whatever, D1 teams. So basically the group of 5. There would be promotion and relegation for that 8th division. The playoff would be the 8 division winners and then 8 wild cards from the top tier. It doesn't sound like college commissioners are very interested in this, but there are some interesting parts to it. The promotion and relegation, whatever, that gets some people excited. I don't really care.
Well, I like that. I'll just say though, I don't know how you can do it. Like you're relegated to what?
The second tier league. Yeah, I don't know.
The other system is going to be operated differently than this one. Like, so I think the things that you are going to be able to do in this league are illegal in the other, right? So I don't know how that would work.
I do think the most interesting part of it when it comes to this proposal is the fact that the players would be treated like employees and a lot of things would be collectively bargained. NIL or whatever you want to call that, transfer portal, salary structure, possible benefits, that would all be collectively bargained with a union representing the players. And now I'm not sure how all of this would work with the TV deals that are already in place. That seems like a very large hurdle to work through. But I think the thought process is you would sell this whole thing as one TV package, just like the NFL does. There are some bits and pieces that are interesting to this. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but everyone is talking about it. And the fun thing is that OU would clearly be part of the 70 permanent members. And you start thinking about who would be in their division and all that type of stuff. It's kind of a fun mental exercise.
Well, it's a fun mental exercise until you see what some of the proposed divisions look like. Right? because for Oklahoma, you would basically get the worst of both worlds, SEC and Big 12. Like, I don't know how you would convince Oklahoma fans who are ponying up for season tickets because of how awesome our schedule is the next 2 years to go from playing that back to playing your Big 12 schedule again, basically.
Right.
I don't think that would go well. But, and the other thing is, like, I don't know that the SEC and the Big Ten would divvy it up, but I do think that there's some things in this that are like, leave the division stuff alone. I do think that there's going to be a top division of college football that is kind of governed in a different way than the rest. How many? I don't know how many teams are going to be in it. I know the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be in it, and maybe you have to be in the SEC and the Big Ten to be in it at some point. But the players, the collectively bargained part, I think all of that stuff is coming. I don't know about the divisions and what it's all going to look like.
College football's got to figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
And this proposal, I don't think this is what it's going to end up being. I think the top tier group, whatever you're going to want to call it, the Super League, I think it's going to be a smaller group than 80. But I do think, I appreciate the effort that people are trying to figure this out, because ultimately the NCAA and these schools are going to continue to get sued over a lot of this stuff. And they're going to be on the hook for a lot of money, and they got to get to a structure that can no longer be viewed as illegal
in the courts nonstop.
Yeah. In the court. So something's going to change. I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I think college football is going to look more like this proposed Super League than what it looked like, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I just ultimately, I think that people are hoping that the big time decision makers in college football are going to do what is best for the sport as a whole. But then the SEC and the Big Ten are making way more money than everyone else. It gives them a competitive advantage. Why would they want the system to change? Other than the legal aspects of what a lot of their, member schools are either dealing with or going to deal with.
I think like the near term is because you've already collectively bargained the television stuff from a conference standpoint. So really all you have to do is declare the players as employees in the conference, and then the SEC Players Union. So all of they negotiate that stuff within the SEC and within the Big Ten. Like, that's kind of how I would see it going currently to get through it. And I don't know if that's possible, but the players being employees is coming soon. I mean, that is going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what the timeline looks like exactly, but it's going to be there.
I appreciate the discussion that this whole thing has kicked off. And we've been talking a little bit about this for a while now, but to see someone actually put a plan out there, put their name on it, there's some influential people attached to it. Just interesting, man.
And you get the feedback, right?
Yeah.
What do people want? What do they not want? What can be done? What can't be done? And then you make some changes and you come up with a new proposal. Like, you're never going to change unless people start throwing some stuff out, like putting some actual people behind it and throwing stuff out there to see what sticks.
My loser of the weekend. I thought about going with illegal screen discourse. My goodness, was that exhausting after that Iowa UConn game. I mean, everyone had opinion on illegal screens. What should you call in the last minute of a game? Oh my gosh, I had no horse in the race. Didn't really care. But man, it turned into the biggest topic in all of sports. Ted, that was wild. And we're recording this before the championship game has taken place between Iowa and South Carolina. But my gosh, it was all over. It was the only thing on my timeline. Different angles of the screen, different thoughts on the screen. Oh, it was. I got tired of it quickly.
Well, I think it could be called a moving screen pretty much at any time. I was kind of surprised they called it when they did, but who wants to see UConn versus South Carolina in the national championship game? I don't.
Did you see the ratings?
Yeah, I don't want
Iowa
to see that.
UConn averaged 14.2 million, peaked at 17.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I feel like UConn. I don't know if it was the call was made because of that, but I could see how it was called because of that, because the UConn South Carolina national championship would not do a fraction of what Iowa South Carolina is going to do.
It would do a good number. Right.
Yeah.
And I saw what the NC State South Carolina blowout in the Final Four averaged like 7.1 million.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people watching women's college hoops right now. It's exciting. The growth is it's really cool to see. But that South Carolina Iowa matchup, that's going to shatter the record. I mean, it won't surprise me if that number's in the 20s.
Oh, I know.
It's going to be a big number.
Which I think that a lot of that number is probably just like me. I saw the South Carolina game beforehand, waiting on the Iowa game. I mean, that's kind of how it is, you know, and the right result. We got the result that I think everyone wanted anyways. I hate that for you, UConn. Sorry.
I think we got the right result. The right is not the proper word. The most intriguing matchups in the men's and the women's tournament.
Yeah, I agree.
That's when your squad is not part of it, there's really not much more you can ask for. Now, that brings me to my loser of the weekend. I don't know if it should be the Kansas City Chiefs, Arrowhead Stadium, the people of Jackson County, Missouri. I don't know. But they overwhelmingly rejected an extension of a sales tax that would have helped renovate Arrowhead Stadium and would have ensured that the Chiefs stayed put for a long time. Now, it does seem like some of the no votes were due to some of the confusion about the Kansas City Royals piece of that entire thing. They're going to build a new stadium. There was a lot of confusion when it came to the plans of where that stadium was going to be. I guess they changed it very late in the game, and people kind of went, wait, what? But you would think that 3 Super Bowls and Patrick Mahomes would just get those people to vote yes on whatever was Chiefs related, but they said hell no, man. I mean, an emphatic hell no. I assume a lot of important people just thought it was going to pass because of all the success of the Chiefs, but nope.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm kind of with you on that. I don't know. You know, it is interesting that Arrowhead's got to be one of the oldest stadiums left, right?
52 years old. Now, of course, they've kept it updated and all these things, but yeah, 52 years is what I read.
Yeah. So that is surprising. I'm pretty confident to say that the Chiefs aren't going anywhere, but that is I bet that did come as a little shock there to the people behind that.
It was like a 58% no vote. It wasn't close, man. So I'm interested to see, but hey, do the Do the teams come back with a different proposal and they vote on it again? I don't know, but I guess there's a spot by the Kansas Speedway in Kansas City, Kansas, that a lot of people think makes a lot of sense for a new stadium for the Chiefs. And you've got different people voting on that, right? You'll have Kansas taxpayers. Are they willing to vote for it? I saw, the Dallas mayor is, very openly lobbying to bring the Chiefs to be the second team in Dallas. Eric Johnson's like, it's a perfect opportunity. Dallas is huge. New York's got 2 teams. LA's got 2 teams. Dallas should have 2 teams. Come on, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And Clark Hunt lives, the owner of the Chiefs, lives in Highland Park in Dallas. So there's some interesting wrinkles to all of this. You've got the face of the league on your team. You've had an incredible amount of success. And now you've just got this awkward uncertainty kind of hovering above it all. I don't know. I find it very interesting, Ted.
I don't know. I'm so conflicted on the Chiefs in Dallas. It kind of consolidates things. I like to root against both of those teams for whatever reason. And like to consolidate them into the same city would make that pretty easy and straightforward for me. I'm assuming if that happened, they'd both use the same stadium like they do in New York. Yeah, you'd have a team to root against in Jerry's world every single weekend, perhaps.
I don't know if they build a new stadium, maybe somewhere closer to actual downtown Dallas. That would be pretty sweet. But I think the Chiefs are going to stay in Kansas City. Now, whether that's Kansas City, Missouri or Kansas City, Kansas, I don't know. But it just made me really appreciate how stress-free the vote was for the new arena in Oklahoma City.
I know. I don't know how
I love each and every one of you Oklahoma City citizens that voted yes for that. I love you. I love you so much.
I mean, it's interesting. I don't know how that breakdown goes for revenue between Missouri and Kansas, the state. But if I had a plot for a stadium in Kansas, it would be worth it to somehow skew that vote and get a deal to build a new arena in Kansas for that revenue that team brings in. If that's how it's done, I don't know. Maybe they split it, but I don't know. It's just pretty interesting.
3 Super Bowls, face of the NFL, and a resounding no vote.
Whew. People have spoken.
We shall see. You got to love democracy. We shall see how it works out. It's just one of those interesting kind of side stories that it was talked about for a day, and 20 years from now, we look back on that day and go, wow, that was a very big deal that maybe we didn't realize at the time.
Crazy.
Birthday shout outs. Happy 4th birthday to Noah Godwin.
Happy belated 21st birthday to Colby Coltenbacher.
And happy birthday to Uncle Wuss, Wes Hudkins.
Nice.
There's got to be a good story for that one.
I like it.
On that note, episode 411 in the books. We'll have a new podcast that'll drop on Wednesday. Eddie Radosevich.
Yeah.
Going to talk some Sooners football with us. And it's his annual visit, man, previewing the Masters. He is so passionate about that golf tournament. It's one of the best Masters previews you will find anywhere.
I love it. He's a good dude.
Just a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hope you all have a great start to your week. And until next time, we appreciate y'all for listening. Do what you always do, Oklahoma. Take care of each other.